Everything Horzine built before the Chimera had one thing in common. It started from something that already existed. The Clot came from a dead child's genetic material. The Stalkers came from human DNA. The Fleshpound came from a life support device modified and pushed past its intended purpose. Even the Queen Crawler, a Mire entity rather than a conventional Z, was built around the template of the crawler that already existed. Every single thing. A modification of something else. The Chimera was different. Multiple biological sources. Different species, different systems. Combined into one stable entity that had never existed before in any form. A creature that did not modify what was already there, but assembled something entirely new from pieces that were never meant to go together. That is not an incremental step in Moorcroft's research. That is a fundamental change in what the research was capable of doing. This is the full breakdown of the Chimera. What it actually is, what its existence tells you about how far Moorcroft's work had progressed before Season 4, how it fights, what its attacks reveal about its design, and how to actually stop it across every difficulty. The Chimera is classified as a large mire entity boss. Like the Queen Crawler, it emerged from the mire's own biological ecosystem rather than being engineered through Horzine's conventional genetic modification program. But where the Queen Crawler is recognizable as a development of something that already existed, the Chimera is something genuinely new, built from multiple biological sources combined into a single stable entity. Think about what that actually means for a second. Combining biological material from different species into a stable living organism is not something conventional biology can do. Individual genetic modification is difficult enough. Creating a chimeric organism that combines fundamentally different biological systems from entirely different sources and remains stable, functional, and capable of complex behavior is a category of biological engineering that did not exist before Moorcroft's Mire research made it possible. The Mire is what bridges the gap between different biological systems in a way that conventional science cannot explain. It is the substance that makes combination possible where combination should be impossible, and the Chimera is the proof that Moorcroft had figured out how to use it that way. The name itself is not accidental. A chimera in mythology is a creature built from parts of different animals. Lion, goat, serpent. Something that should not exist because the pieces it is made from were never designed to work together. Moorcroft took that concept and made it real. The tentacle-filled face is the detail that tells you the most about what the chimera actually is underneath all the armor. Every other part of its body is heavily armored, the kind of armor that standard ammunition barely scratches. But the face, covered in tentacles from multiple biological sources combined into one system, is completely unarmored. That is not an oversight in the design. It is a consequence of what the chimera actually is. The face is where the different biological systems interface with each other most directly, where the combination of sources is most visibly present. Heavily armored biological structures require consistent biological architecture to support that armor. A face built from multiple different species worth of biological material combined through the mire does not have that consistent architecture. It is the seam where the chimeric combination is most exposed, and it is the weak point the whole fight is built around in Phase 1. The tentacles themselves spawn from the ground throughout the fight. They cannot be destroyed, they have to be dodged, which means the chimera is simultaneously the target you are trying to shoot and the source of ground hazards you have to keep moving to avoid. Standing still to aim at the face while tentacles are coming up from the ground around you is not going to work. Mobility is not optional in this fight. It is the fundamental requirement everything else depends on. And then there is the armor, because the face being the weak point only tells half the story of why this fight is as demanding as it is. The armor covers almost the entire chimera in Phase 1. Standard ammunition deals minimal damage to armored sections. Without armor-piercing rounds or cold and force damage weapons, a team is going to find that the vast majority of their fire is being absorbed by armor they cannot efficiently break through. The face remains the priority target because it is the only section taking full damage in Phase 1. But the Chimera is agile for something its size. It rushes toward targets and prioritizes close-range melee attacks that are lethal if you are not moving. Staying at distance to aim at the face while it is actively closing the gap requires constant repositioning rather than standing and shooting. It also launches Mire globes in Phase 1, yellow orbs that travel through the air and spawn Mire cysts on impact with the ground. The Mire cysts then ambush players who are already managing melee pressure from the Chimera itself. Shooting the Mire globes down before they land prevents the cysts from spawning. Letting them land means managing secondary enemies on top of everything else. Turrets from the engineer or multi-tool are the most effective counter to Mire cysts because they handle the secondary pressure automatically while the team focuses on the face. At half health, the Chimera sheds its armor, and honestly, the first time it happens, it feels like a win. The armor is gone. The weak spots are exposed on the arms and body. The team's damage output jumps significantly. Then the Chimera teleports directly behind someone, and the Phase 2 reality sets in. The armor coming off is not a relief, it is a gear change into a different kind of pressure. The teleportation means the positioning advantage the team built in Phase 1 disappears instantly. A boss that was manageable from distance because you could see it coming is now appearing directly behind players without warning. The Mire globe launches continue and spawn cysts more aggressively. The tentacles are still coming from the ground, and the melee damage increases to the point where getting caught by a hit from a poorly positioned player becomes devastating. Phase 2 is more chaotic than Phase 1, despite the armor being gone. And the teams that struggle most are the ones who relaxed when they saw the armor drop. So what actually gets the job done? Keep moving, the tentacles cannot be destroyed, and the Chimera teleports in Phase 2. Standing still is how you get hit by both simultaneously. Movement is the answer to almost every threat this fight presents. Target the face in Phase 1 exclusively. Cold and force damage weapons deal increased damage specifically to the face. The Samaritan and Vulcan TA are your best dedicated options. Aiming for the chest is also fine because weapons with upward recoil will naturally drift toward the head after firing anyway. Shoot Mire globes down before they land. Every cyst that spawns is another threat the team has to manage while fighting the boss. Preventing them from spawning is significantly easier than dealing with them after they arrive. Bring a multi-tool or coordinate with the engineer to place turrets before the boss wave. Turrets handle Mire cyst pressure automatically and free the team to focus entirely on the Chimera. In Phase 2, switch to the exposed weak spots on the arms and body immediately. The glowing spots take more damage, and there are several of them, giving the team more options regardless of where the Chimera teleports. One Chimera spawns regardless of team size. That is the key difference from the Impaler. More players genuinely makes this fight easier because the face is a large target that benefits from concentrated fire, and the secondary threats are easier to split between more people. On normal and hard consistent mobility and face targeting in Phase 1 gets the job done. On Suicidal and Hell on Earth, the teleport that is the Chimera, a Mire entity built from multiple biological sources combined into one stable entity. The most advanced creature Horzine produced before Moorcroft transformed himself in Season 4. A boss whose face is its weak point because the face is where the combination of different biological systems is most visibly exposed. And looking at what the Chimera represents in the context of Moorcroft's research arc, a scientist who learned to combine entirely different biological systems into one stable entity and then eventually combined himself with his own experiments. In Season 4, the Chimera is not just the hardest launch boss, it is the preview of what Moorcroft was becoming. Subscribe so you do not miss the next boss breakdown in this series. because the Alpha Scavenger is next, and it is the boss that emerged from the Antarctic dig site, rather than from a conventional lab. And what that tells you about what Moorcroft found in Antarctica connects directly to everything the Dread Zone video covered, and drop a comment. The Chimera was built from multiple biological sources combined into one stable entity using the Mire as the bridge that made combination possible. Do you think Moorcroft saw himself as a chimera by the time Season 4 arrived? Because looking at what he eventually did to himself, I genuinely think he did. Tell me what you think.